We would like to welcome everyone out to our City Council meeting this evening. Would like to call this meeting to order. We would like to mention that Councilmember Debbie LeRae is with us on the phone, but not in person. Debbie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Good to have you here. We would like to start out by having a prayer by Heidi Hilton, after which we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Michael Olander.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful to be together tonight. We're so grateful for this nation that we live in, for our wonderful state, and for this dear city that we are privileged to call home. We're so grateful for thy many blessings unto us in this city. We're grateful for a wonderful mayor and city council, and for so many other public servants who serve us with goodness and integrity and kindness. And we are grateful for volunteers and for anyone else who lends a hand to make this city a wonderful place to live. We are so grateful for our forebears who went before us to make sacrifices to make this a wonderful place for us, and we pray that our hearts will turn to them and that we can make the same kind of thought and sacrifice for those who will come after us. We remember those who are in need. We acknowledge that we have been richly blessed, and we remember especially those in our own country who are affected by Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma. We pray that thou wilt send help and hope to them, and help us always to reach out monetarily, but also in other ways to everyone we can, to lift and serve and help in any way we can, that we can truly come together as one in our community. And we pray for thy Spirit to be with us as we proceed tonight, that we will have congeniality, good feelings, and goodwill as we listen to different ideas that are presented. We pray that we'll have respect and kindness for one another. And we say these things in the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Heidi. We would like to begin by having the approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of August 29th, 2017. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. We would like to go over the upcoming events on our calendar. September 13th through the 15th, we have the Utah League of Cities and Towns annual conference at the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Salt Lake. September the 11th through the 16th, we have the fall cleanup at Nielsen's Grove and Palisade Park. September the 14th, we have the drill down for safety at 6 p.m. citywide. On November the 14th, we have the United Way Day of Caring that will be occurring throughout the entire county. We have 6 particular properties in our city that will be being cleaned up. I know some painting will be done at a home and some painting will be done at some schools. We encourage anyone who would like to participate with that to go to the city manager's office, or you can look at the doors and see where the different events are and attend. On September the 25th, we have the City of Orem Harvest Festival Farmers Market from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Orem Community Hospital. On September the 27th, we have the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce candidate debate at the Sierra Theater at 3:30 p.m. On September the 30th, we have Sarah Bateman's free swap event from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the City Center Pavilion. October the 2nd, we have the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce Executive Summit at Sundance from 7:30 to 3. October the 7th, we have the Touch a Truck event from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Mountain View High School, and it's my understanding the City Council and Mayor will be providing some food there. October the 11th, we have the City of Orem Firehouse open house from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m., Fire Station number 3 on 1200 West. October the 12th, we have the UVU men's soccer match occurring, and it will be Orem City Night, and we will be there at 5 p.m. October the 14th is the Utah Valley 27th Annual Scholarship Ball, 5:30 p.m. at the UCCU Center. November the 7th is the general election. Again, we are voting by mail, and so those ballots will go out 3 weeks prior to November the 7th. November the 20th, we have the City of Orem NIA Lights On at 6 p.m. at the City Center. December the 5th, we have the City Council Christmas Party with the executive staff at the Sleepy Ridge Garden Room at 6 p.m. And December the 21st, we have the City of Orem Employee Christmas Party from noon to 3 at UVU. That's a mouthful. We now would like to entertain a report from the Library Advisory Commission, and Shar, would you like to introduce them and have them come forward?
Yeah, I'd be happy to introduce them while they're coming up to the table. You guys can just go ahead and come up. This is a really dedicated group of individuals. James Jones is the chairperson this year, and he is also working with the Orem High School tennis team, and September has been a very busy month for tennis, so I'm sorry that he couldn't be here tonight. So Ken Bonney is the vice chair, and he is going to lead the presentation. We are also missing Terry Smith. Sorry that she's not able to be here, but these folks have a short presentation for you, and I can't say enough about their good work and their contribution to helping us have a better library here in Orem.
Great. So we'll turn the time over to you, Ken.
Absolutely. Good evening. We are thrilled to be here with you and excited. And kind of our theme of our presentation tonight is we believe in the power of libraries. We believe that within the library, it's a power to learn, power to discover, the power to grow, and most importantly, the power to have fun. Now, it's been a great year at the library, and over 1 million items have been circulated this past year. We've increased our collection in both ebooks and e-audiobooks, and nearly 750 programs were held at the library. We focus on science, technology, engineering, art, and math throughout the year, and our STEAM-themed summer reading program was a big hit. And nearly 1,300 community members joined us to watch the eclipse this past year at the library, or just a couple weeks ago, I suppose. Tonight, we'd like to introduce to the council some new initiatives that we have at the library.
All right, my name is Courtney Burns, and I'm going to talk to you about the Teen Library Council, or the TLC. This is a group of great teens who meet monthly to plan upcoming programs for teens and evaluate the programs that they have held, and also to participate in volunteer activities. The first Orem TLC meeting was held August 2016, so they're just a little bit over a year old. And since their first meeting, there has been an increase in attendance by 24% at teen programs. The TLC has achieved this in part by planning programs that appeal more to teens, and also by finding new ways to reach out to teens and to others who may not usually visit the library. For example, the library now advertises teen programs in local high schools so that they can be aware of what we are doing here. Some of the members of the Teen Library Council have joined us tonight, and we'd love to recognize them.
Could you have them stand up?
Yeah, I was going to say they don't want to speak, but they should stand up.
Sure.
So we've got Rachel. I know her mom. Rachel Wanless, Marion Hamilton, Riley Gregg, and Will Gregg. And then joining us shortly is also Ellie Cornwall. There are about 10 members of the council who meet together on a monthly basis.
Great to have you here.
Done some really great work. We've got some slides to highlight some of the things that they do, such as service in helping create library displays and working on events and other special programs like the After Hours Teen Summer Reading Program, or the Teen Summer Reading Program. The TLC also helps to appeal to local teens by generating content for the library's social media. And here are a couple of our favorite Book Face Friday pictures that they have created for us. The TLC also reads and writes reviews of young adult books, which are featured on the Orem Library blog. And they also created an art spinner, which you can see on your right here, that was featured at the Teen Summer Reading Art Carnival. So we really appreciate our teens for doing so much for the library. I am also going to go on to speak a little bit about Lego at the library, to offer fun and educational opportunities for kids to interact with the library. Rita Christensen, children's librarian at the library, implemented 2 new Lego and the library programs. The first is Books with Builds, a creative Lego story time with books, fun facts, free builds, and show and tell, and you have pictures of that here. The second is the Lego Lab, which incorporates free play with building challenges. So that's our Lego at the library program.
Hey, there's a good-looking guy.
That's quite the mustache in the picture there.
I know, it came from my eyebrow.
The next section is on yearbooks online, and as you can okay, and as you can tell, this is certainly an important part of the library's collection. Yearbooks are an important part of any community's history, and while the Orem Library has been collecting yearbooks in hard copy for many years, it's clear that many people want to be able to access them online. These books are popular, especially during class reunions, but they can't be shared widely, and they're vulnerable to theft and damage. Creating an online collection allows everyone to access these books and to see how we looked several years ago. Through grant writing and significant legwork by Janet Lowe, an OPL librarian, as well as scanning help from dedicated volunteers, the library now offers a searchable digital collection of the scrapbooks and yearbooks from the elementary, junior high, and high schools past and present of Orem. The collection dates back to the 1883 yearbook of the Spencer School. Library staff continues to work diligently to track down missing books, and we will seek additional grant funding to add books from Oak Canyon Junior High, a school that serves both Orem and Linden, and charter schools. And as you can tell from the slide, during the last year, the yearbooks online database had 31,997 searches.
Just for Mr. Seastrand, or?
I'm sure.
I'm going to talk about the Friends of the Library program. The original Friends of the Library program lapsed many years ago, so Associate Librarian Tamara Starr researched Friends of the Library programs in other libraries throughout the state of Utah and implemented a new Friends group in the past few months. The new Friends program allows patrons to support the libraries with a monetary contribution and receive library perks for their generosity, such as a library bag or a t-shirt or getting first into the book sale. It is our hope that Friends will continue to contribute on an annual basis. Friends can join at many different levels: student, individual, family, bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. And you have a bookmark with the details in your packet if you want to learn more about it. It's hoped that these funds that are raised by the Friends will help to contribute to more library projects in the future.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Stratton. I'm going to talk a little bit about the makerspace, the new makerspace at the library. This is something that was started this year with support of funds and support of in the current budget, and support of the city manager. If you don't know what a makerspace is, it's a resource for people to find highly specialized technological equipment that they usually wouldn't be able to have on their own. So the library is pleased to be able to supply this to people now. Our development's off to a great start. We'll continue to seek grant funding to expand our offerings and supply different types of equipment, and also curriculum-based training for patrons. We held a successful Maker Fair in August. Got some pictures there. And we'll be opening the Makerspace for patrons later this month. It's kind of a soft opening now. Patrons are able to use the equipment for free. There are a few items like the 3D printer that they do need to pay for the filament for the printer. But on the whole, it's free for them to use. And this is a list of the equipment that we have there so far. We hope to expand it.
What can you make with the 3D printer that we have?
Well,
what do you want to make?
You can make, there's plastic, obviously. You could design.
I'd like to make a bust of
a lot of different things.
Seastrand from that picture.
We made some small projects for the Maker Faire, but really I should turn the time to Ernesto because he has been our support and our technical advisor in choosing our 3D printers because his family uses them a lot and they've made drones. Some drones.
Yeah, I would like to hear what he has.
Things like that, so it's pretty impressive.
We've actually printed a whole bunch of radio-controlled airplanes that are completely 3D printed. They even have the shock absorbers in the wheels, and even the wheels are 3D printed with a different type of material that's a little bit more flexible, or the tires are printed in a material that's a little bit more flexible. They have internal supports, spars that are printed by layers so that they're incorporated into the structure of the airplane, and so there's some really neat things that you can do with that. And with the ones the printers that the library bought, they bought one that has dual extruders so that you can print with two different materials or two different colors at the same time. And
what does it cost to make a model airplane on a 3D printer?
With just the material, it depends on the size. One that we printed that's about a 57-inch wingspan, it's a biplane, I think cost a little under $100, close to $100 for all the material. But you can, you can print some out for less than $10. So there's a lot of flexibility with what you can do. You actually print the parts on the table that those printers have, the workspace, and then you glue them together, and so it becomes one big solid object once it's done. And so you can create really big objects with just a relatively small printer.
Great, thank you.
I think 3D printers can also be used for, innovation. You can make it something that you thought of that would serve a purpose, like a different type of plug for a cell phone or different things like that you can, design yourself. So I think it's a great opportunity for youth as well, or anyone, to be creative with that 3D printer. We also have several upcoming projects that we're working on. Our individual and group study rooms are currently out to bid to be constructed, some new ones. And then the children's wedge area, here's some images there, is being redesigned to encourage development of early literacy skills. You can see the different shapes in that building block entrance and a sensory activity wall there. And then lastly, we are still fundraising for a much needed auditorium space. You can see here a few pictures of events that we've had where, standing room only space was at a prime. So we're still working towards that and appreciate your support.
Good.
Above all, we'd like to thank the City of Orem for their support of the Orem City Library, making it very much a community anchor to a great city. And also to thank the City Council for their support, particularly Councilmember Sumner, who joins us at our meetings and gives great advice and great guidance. And as I know that all citizens of the City of Orem would agree that we believe in the power of libraries. Thank you very much.
You bet. Councilmember Lentz has a question for you.
Yeah, so a question on the makerspace. So is that open whenever the library's open? Anybody can come in and take advantage of that, or are there certain times? Do you have to schedule it, or are there only for events?
We're going to start with published hours, and sometimes you might be able to, or you might have to reserve a machine if you're doing a larger project. Our makerspace is going to open in a small room in our fiction area that's downstairs in the south wing, but we have had great support from our IT staff, and they have been using another room in that area previously, and they have graciously agreed to let us move the makerspace into that room. So we are kind of working through some logistical details, but we're going to open with the smaller room, and then eventually we'll probably have both rooms operating. One might be more for the recording studio and the green screen. Possibly the music equipment might be in there, but we really look forward to having just a chance for people to come in and learn some new skills. And we are wanting to open it with hours published just so that there is someone there to help a little bit. We can't promise that we know all the technology, but we certainly know how to hook you up with a YouTube tutorial. And also just to provide a little extra security so we don't inadvertently lose anything that we've been looking forward to providing for the community for a long time. And I just wanted to note that this is Mary Richards. She's the brand new member of our Library Advisory Commission.
Welcome.
And Marcia Cerny also introduced the Friends program. I don't know if they introduced themselves, but really appreciate all their help on the council.
Thank you.
One question I have is when I drive into the city center, oftentimes I have to wait for mothers, young mothers with young children who have checked out library books that are walking in the parking lot to their particular car. And I don't know if this question should go to Ken or to Shar. I'm just curious how you keep this going with so many young children interested in checking out books.
One of the programs that the library has, and Shar could help me out with this, is 1,000 books. A goal to have the children read 1,000 books or have those books read to them by the time they start school. Now, some accomplish that in a matter of months, it seems, but I think if you look at the success of a community, a success of a library, it all starts with guaranteeing you have a future, and we're thrilled that so many young people, young children, love to read. I don't know if it's, for me personally, a stall tactic by my 6-year-old, but he won't go to bed without a story read to him. So, and it really spurs that lifelong love of learning.
That's great. Thank you. Councilmember Seastrand has a question.
I love the creativity, the innovation that you guys are doing. This is, I mean, the future role of libraries is, everybody's kind of wondering what's the future of books with all the digital stuff. But I love the programs you're doing. I love the creative thinking. I love that you're being inclusive of so many different groups. Fantastic, fantastic work. Thank you very much.
I think Councilmember McDonald has a comment to make.
Not knowingly.
Not knowingly. You just have the look on your face.
Tom always has a comment.
Shake their hands before they leave.
Yeah, that's fine. He wants to shake your hand, so we'll do that. I just would like to bring up that we really appreciate the work that you do on the commission. We appreciate what Shar does. We have a wonderful library, and we support the efforts that all of you make to keep it going, to improve it, to change it, to beautify it, per se. And we just support the library as a whole. We think it's a great asset to the city, so thank you very much. With that, if we could have every one of you come up and shake our hands, or let us shake your hands, we would appreciate it. They're coming.
See what we can do to help.
Come on, Suzanne, be bold. Come on up.
So you need to come this way, up around the council.
Just come
on over.
You're doing great.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
How are things going?
Fantastic presentation. You guys.
Thanks.
How's that going?
Another button. We need a button.
There you go.
So nice.
Thank you for your work.
You know when Gail?
Thank you for participating.
Getting involved. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for your service.
We now have time set aside for personal appearances. I would just like to read what it states on our agenda with regards to personal appearances. It states, time has been set aside for the public to express their ideas, their concerns, and comments on items not scheduled as public hearings on the agenda. Those wishing to speak are encouraged to show respect for those who serve the city. I appreciate the prayer earlier to start out where you mentioned respect and kindness. Comments should focus on issues concerning the city. Those wishing to speak should have signed in before the beginning of the meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I just want to bring up one item that was brought up at our last city council meeting with regards to public appearances. and personal appearances. A comment was made that back in October of 2016, I asked that religion not be brought into comments of personal appearances. What I actually requested was that there be no religious condemnation of city council or city staff. I would ask that there be no condemnation, religious or otherwise, of those who serve in the city and those who serve on the council. Certainly religion is welcome as a part of any comment here in our city center, and we have no restrictions on that, but we do ask that the comments be made with regards to issues facing the city and not condemnation or criticism of those on the council or those in the city staff. That respect be shown and kindness be shown for those who serve, and that the comments be strictly focused around the issues that are important with regards to the city. With regards to that, then we have two residents who would like to speak to us. First of all, we have Harold McLeod and then Michael Olander.
Excuse me, Harold McCown, 672 Orchard Drive. My concern is regarding pickleball courts being planned in Sharon Park. I would not have known about this if I had not been walking through there and stumbled across the contractors doing a walkthrough. My question on that is basically threefold. One, when is the neighborhood going to be included in this kind of a discussion? Because that's a major change to that small park. Last year, you flooded the Sharon Park neighborhood with postcards wanting people to serve on the neighborhood planning committee. This is much more to the heart of the people in that neighborhood. Why not flood it and get their input as to what should be done there? Second off, 500 North, which will be greatly impacted, is already plugged at 4 to 5 times a day with people dropping off and picking up their children at Sharon Elementary. My concern is that our bringing in additional traffic during those times is going to be a problem for the safety of the kids there. Third, Sharon Park is a partnership between the neighborhood and the city. The neighborhood raised the money to build the park, and in partnership with the city, bought the land and developed the park pretty much as it is today, with a stipulation that it be kept pretty much the way it is today. There have been a couple of modifications to it that appear to have enhanced the neighborhood use of the park. That quarter-mile track was not there originally, but it is very greatly used these days. It is very much appreciated. What I would request is that we put the brakes on this process. Let's go back and make sure that this is in conjunction with the original intention of the park and the stipulations made back when it was built, and then see where we go from there. But it, by all means, please involve the neighborhood. Be as transparent as you can with these kinds of major changes, particularly to a small park. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Now hear from Michael Olander.
Hi, my name is Michael Olander. I live at 321 West, 100 South here in Orem, and I'm here to talk about the Orem Bark Park. Since the opening, I have been almost a daily user of the Bark Park, and have gathered together a group of about 60 people. Any given night, there's up to 30 dogs at the Bark Park, and we're wondering when it's going to be finished. And the back area that was hydro-seeded around the grand opening is nothing but weeds now. And while the bag dispensers for collecting the animal waste is only at the entrance of the park and not spread around the park, and why we need steps going from the one bench that's in the large dog area to the entrance of the park, because it's such a steep incline, and we don't want during winter for the incline to become a ski slope. It's going to be very difficult for us to get to the one bench in the park. And we were there are plenty of volunteers that would like to go and help to remove the rocks in the grassed area that's supposed to be growing. And we'd like to find out when that's going to open up. Our dogs would love to run on the grass and not in the crushed granite. There's been a German Shepherd that's ran and ground the pads off of his feet from trying to stop for a ball in the crushed granite. And during windstorms, the granite or the dust kicks up really bad during the windstorms, and the wind is constantly there coming down the canyon. And so constantly we're seeing dust being kicked up from the dogs running around. And we would like to find out in the future with that park, because we see the rest of the park is being maintained there at Timpanogos Park, and gets mowed every week. There's new bark down. The buildings are being maintained, but nothing has been done since since May to the Orem bark, and we just want to find out what's going on.
Can you give me your phone number again? It's written down here, but I can't read it.
801-380-6004.
Okay, great. We'll get in touch with you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go ahead and close this portion of the personal appearances and move on to a consent item. There is a suggestion for a motion for the City Council to accept the consent item as noted, that we cancel the September 26, 2017 City Council meeting. I will make a motion for that. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, let's go on to scheduled items. The first one is a public hearing. This is on setback standards for State Street, amending Section 22-8-8B of the Orem City Code pertaining to development standards for the State Street corridor area. And Jason Bench is our presenter.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council. Tonight, as mentioned, Section 22-8-8B, which is part of the State Street standards, we would like to make some slight modification, clarification, if you will, to those standards. The standards include the map that you see on here, anything in the C2, C3, or a PD zone that's within 500 feet of the property lines along State Street, so that those are the properties that would be affected. The amendment is simply that any landscaping or the setback between the back of the sidewalk, and the building needs to be landscaped. That's the whole purpose of these standards that we brought to you in April. This is just a clarification that is the intent of the landscaping. The Planning Commission did review it and make a recommendation that the Council approve that, and we support that. So be glad to address any questions that you have.
Questions from the Council? This is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to the public. Anyone who would like to make a comment, please hold your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. Seeing no one's coming forward, we'll go ahead and bring the hearing back to the Council and close the public comment portion. Any questions or comments from the Council? Yes, Councilor.
In our long-term plans, vision for State Street, there's a possibility of some kind of light rail going down the middle or transportation.
Mm-hmm.
If UDOT comes in and wants to take a couple more feet from each side, how does that affect these setbacks? I mean, you just go from whatever UDOT says is the boundary, or?
Well, if you look on just let you know, so the standard is a 15-foot setback from back of curb to the sidewalk. In the future, we've planned that UDOT potentially could take up to 7 feet of that. And so that would come out of the landscape portion. You can see this location here. So the remaining property is where we're placing the trees, the signs, and all that. So what they would simply take would be any grass between the curb and that portion. So we're planning on these standards to actually plan for that in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments by the Council? Okay, Councilmember Seastrand.
Mayor, City Council, I would move then that we go ahead and amend the ordinance of Section 22-8-8B of the Orem City Code pertaining to the zone development standards for setbacks in the State Street corridor area.
I would second that. Debbie, we'd like to go to you first.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember
Aye.
Turner?
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passes. Thank you. We'll go to item number 14, which is a public hearing on parking standards for affordable senior housing overlay, amending section 22-12-7010 of the Orem City Code pertaining to parking requirements in the affordable senior housing overlay zone. And our presenter is Jason Bench.
Thank you, Mayor. Requested before you tonight is another amendment to try to fit these affordable senior housing developments within a neighborhood. They can have up to 4 units, and typically you have a single-family neighborhood with 4 units. We don't want to have all the parking in the front yard setback, which we've had previously in a couple of them. These standards are simply to require either a 1 or 2 car garage in the front, which is a typical what you see in a single-family neighborhood, and then require the other parking to be behind and then also screened by a fence. To give you a couple of examples, this is one that's currently in the process with the city. You can see Main Street on the lower portion of the screen and the parking behind. And this is the direction and what we're actually wanting. This is what this ordinance is intended to do, so that we can have the frontage of the home be like a single-family home. The parking would be in the rear of the property. This is another example. This actually is an American Fork, where you can see the facility has the parking on the sides, which are screened from the street. So the parking is back in this location. The access is up in here, and so you can't see it as you drive by. And so those 2 examples are what we're trying to do with this proposed text amendment, to have it fit into the neighborhood. So that's our request. I'd be glad to address any questions. The Planning Commission did review that and has made a recommendation for approval.
So explain to me about parking spaces in a side yard.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the project next to the Catholic Church, where they have the 2 and then the garages are on the sides as you drive by. The home actually projects out a little bit, so you can't actually see the garage unless you stop right in the middle and look back. So what we're trying to do is we allow them on the sides as long as the front building or the facade will screen them from the street. So we wouldn't allow them on a corner lot because you'd be able to see it from the side street. But if it's a interior lot and the garages are on the side, or the parking are on the side and the screen from the actual front of the building, that would be allowed as well.
So the garage is actually on the side then in that case?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember McDonald?
On that, it says that you can't go any further than the front elevation of the primary building. So that sounds like you can't go to the side of the house. Is that correct?
So yeah. So the parking couldn't project out. So you can. So if your house is in the front, and you want to go beyond that front facade, and so you can actually see the parking, that's what we're saying you can't do. It has to be tucked behind the actual building itself. So if it was an L shape, for example, the front of the home, so similar to this, where the garage is actually tucked behind the house. And so if you're looking right here, standing out here, if my pointer works.
So the way, where's the street is 300 East there in?
Yes.
So the way I read it is it couldn't go past the front of the house. Obviously, that's going behind the house.
So the parking would have to be, the house would have to come in this area to screen the parking is what we're saying.
Could you go back and tell me how B says that? Because that's confused me a little bit, Jason.
So as long as it's not adjacent to the public street, so it's a street side yard wouldn't, or a corner lot wouldn't be able to do that. But then the parking spaces extends further into the side yard than the front elevation. So you can't be able to, so the parking wouldn't be able to be seen without having the front of the elevation blocking the parking.
I think the key language there is that the parking doesn't extend further into the side
further than the front elevation.
Than the front elevation.
So where
front elevation from the back.
The front elevation is what you see of the building when you're on the street.
Right. I understood you couldn't go past the front elevation. What you're saying is you can from the front of the house. You had to park at the side of the house. That's what I was reading B to say. That was confusing.
Okay. Yeah, it just means that the parking can't extend out from that front facade, or the front elevation of the building, because if it does that, then it's visible from the street.
Gotcha. Okay, let me see B again.
So basically, the last sentence, basically, the purpose is to screen it from view of the street. And that's
So that particular garage, the one that you showed the picture of, is behind the house. But in fact, that garage could move farther forward as long as it's behind the front elevation.
And it needs to be attached to the structure at that point. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Councilmember Lentz has a comment.
So if you could go back to that picture of the three side by side. This is a bit off topic, and I apologize, but is there a limit with our ASH zone where you can only have so many of these in a given neighborhood, or could you essentially have them lining an entire street?
Within the area, you probably could. I'll let Steve address that.
Yeah, there's no limit. One limitation that's in the ordinance right now is that you can't take an existing lot and subdivide it into two lots and have an ASH development on both of those, but you could put them on as many currently existing lots as you want, basically. So there's no separation requirement.
And I'm not sure how much of a risk that becomes as far as, taking over the entire neighborhood, because the rent is limited to, what the federal guidelines stipulate.
Right.
But I was just curious if that issue had come up as we've had these proposals come in. Has anybody tried to do, 4 or 5 of these lined up, or is it just kind of one per neighborhood that?
The two by the church, there are 2 side by side on separate lots, so that's the only one that we have currently that they're next to each other. Okay. But as we evolve into these different things, we're finding different, which is why we're coming before you tonight to make some minor changes to get them to fit better into the neighborhoods.
Yep. Okay.
Can you remind us again what the limitations are on the rents?
Oh, you caught me off guard. I don't know what that is. But basically all the utilities, all that has to be included, and it's subject to whatever the housing authority federal guidelines say that a 1 or 2 bedroom unit can be. That's the maximum they can charge. It has to include everything but the phone.
Could you send us a follow-up email on that? I'd be interested in that.
I think the 1 bedroom was in the neighborhood of 800.
It's like 8, and the maximum is like 950, something like that. But I'll send you an email.
I was going to say something like that, but I'd like to see it in.
Sure.
That'd be great. Any other comments from the council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for any public comment. Anyone who would like to come forward, hold your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. Seeing no one's coming forward, we'll bring the public hearing back to the council and close public comment portion of it. Any comments from the council at this point? Okay, anyone would like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we amend Section 22-12-7010 of the Orem City Code pertaining to parking requirements in the Affordable Senior Housing Overlay Zone.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Start with Councilmember Debbie LeRae.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Seastrand.
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passed. Well, now, thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Now move on to a resolution to adopt the Mountain Land Pre-Disaster Hazard Mitigation Plan. Our presenter is Chief Scott Gurney, Heath Stevenson, and I believe Aaron Cloward is here as well.
Mayor Brunst, members of the City Council, it's a pleasure for us to be here with you. Our purpose tonight is to recommend for you, for your consideration, the adoption of the Mountain Land Pre-Disaster Hazardous Mitigation Plan. We have with us, as the mayor outlined, our Orem City Emergency Manager, Heath Stevenson, and from the Mountain Land Association of Governments, Aaron Cloward. I've asked Heath if he wouldn't mind briefly outlining the plan that was presented previously to you, to give you the oversight of that plan. If any time during the presentation, if you have any questions, please ask, and we'll be happy to answer those. So I'm going to turn the time over to Heath.
All right. Thanks for your time, Mayor and City Council members. As Chief Gurney mentioned, our goal here is to adopt the Mountain Land Pre-Disaster Hazard Mitigation Plan. And what this plan is, it's a multi-jurisdictional plan All participating jurisdictions in Utah County, Summit County, and Wasatch County all have a portion of this plan that they need to adopt within their city. It is done every 5 years. It's reviewed, revised, and adopted in the city council. And what it is, it's a hazard mitigation plan that has to meet certain federal requirements and be cleared through FEMA, which is what the Mountain Land Association of Governments has done, MAG for abbreviation purposes. The purpose of this plan is to outline Orem, so in our case here, Orem's natural hazards, our risks, our vulnerabilities, and then find ways that we can go through and mitigate those and maybe even prevent those from happening in the future. This is done with working through with different departments throughout the city. Public Works is one of the main ones that I have been working with, trying to come up with ideas, come up with ways to prevent any type of flooding or kind of the stuff that you see going on, how we can prevent that here in Orem in the future. Just to highlight a couple of these, so protect public safety and prevent loss of life and injury. So that's the most important thing that we can do as an emergency management here in the city, is prevent loss of life and injury. So why are we asking that this be adopted? The two main reasons that we are asking that this plan be adopted is to make Orem eligible for federal hazard mitigation money. This money comes through two different ways. Through pre-disaster mitigation grants, and those are grants that as an emergency manager we can apply for through the city, again with Public Works trying to come up with projects. And it's a 75% FEMA, 25% Orem is how they split the money on those big projects. Those are grants, so it's just, I guess I shouldn't say free money, but not money that has to be repaid. The other way that we can get this money is after an event. The first thing that FEMA will come in and ask for is if we have some kind of mitigation plan in place in the city. If we do, then when a disaster happens, it is much easier to go through FEMA to get the money that is required to help start rebuilding the city, get the infrastructure up and running, and be on our way to recovery. So the function of this plan, I'm just going to read this really quick, is Orem's commitment to reduce risks from natural hazards, serving as a guide for decision makers as they commit resources to reducing effects of natural hazards. So in essence, it's a way to get city members, city employees, city officials forward thinking on what could potentially happen in Orem, and is there a way that we can go through and mitigate that or try to prevent that from happening before it does. So, and the reason that we're here in front of City Council asking for this adoption is that it is a requirement under FEMA. I'm not going to read the actual code here, but on the bottom. So in order for the city of Orem to comply with FEMA's requirement, a hazard mitigation plan must be adopted, or else we won't be able to get that pre-disaster mitigation grant money. So, Aaron, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
That was a good synopsis of what the purpose of the grant is for. There is no downside to passing the resolution to support the policy. We worked with city planners and personnel from Orem specifically to include elements that Orem as a city is concerned about, mitigation efforts that they specifically would target to improve the mitigation capacity to avoid hazards before they happen. This plan is specifically geared towards before the hazard takes place. It doesn't include anything that happens after the hazard. That's where the emergency manager takes over, and so it's specifically geared towards developing strategies and going for grants for FEMA to help Orem City prepare itself before a hazard were to take place.
So a question as you're going through this. So if we don't pass this, then obviously we're not entitled to the mitigation project grants ahead of time. But should a disaster happen and we haven't passed this, then are we then restricted under what we would receive from FEMA afterwards?
I believe not, Mayor. FEMA allows any city within the 5-year plan cycle to accept the plan and be covered under it. They encourage forward thinking and pre-action, but they don't penalize you if you get hit before you apply the.
Well, yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, should we not do it, it's not going to penalize us after a hurricane hits Orem that we won't get FEMA help.
Oh, no, that's you're exactly right.
Okay.
The purpose of this is to help us to look ahead and identify that. But as after the fact, it'll make it. We have systems in place that will allow us to go ahead and ask for reimbursement. There's certain things that we have to do to get that reimbursement from FEMA.
Okay.
That will not preclude us if you desire not to adopt.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Lentz has a comment.
I feel like emergency preparedness is one thing that Orem tends to do pretty well. We've got our city drill coming up this Thursday. Anytime we're talking about federal grants, one question that comes up is, well, aren't there always strings attached? And so with what we're being asked to do with approving this plan, is there anything that is not in the best interest of the city of Orem or excessively costly and unnecessarily expensive that we would not otherwise do?
I believe as we identify different projects and different things that we need to do, and as Aaron has indicated, we've had individuals look at those things that are most predictable for our area, what's going to happen potentially for us to help us to reduce the loss of life and property. That's our goal, that's your goal. And as we look at those types of things, we're going to be very prudent of what we do and what monies we spend. But as we request monies from FEMA or from the grant, those are going to be able to help us to do that with the way I understand the grant is no strings attached.
Okay, thank you.
If I may?
Yes.
In addition, FEMA uses this federal mandate as a sort of gateway to restrict grants coming in from cities that haven't taken the time to develop a hazard mitigation plan. SMAG does this regionally so that cities don't have to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sumner has a comment.
Yes, if a disaster does happen, Governor Christie was quite critical of how they paid their money, FEMA. Does the city have to have the money to pay for that disaster or rebuilding, and then FEMA reimburses them? How's the cash flow work on that?
There we go. So how it takes place is if a disaster hits the city that it takes place, they are responsible for that disaster. However, if it's a big enough disaster that Orem's resources have run out, then you move to the county. The county will come in and help. Then if that's bigger than that, you go to the state and then to federal. And so as you use all the resources up the chain, at that point, that's when you get FEMA involved, that's when they're coming in and bringing in those extra resources, that extra money to help.
So, Jamie, you need lots of reserves.
Yeah, if we ever have a major disaster, there's a lot of money that's going to need to be spent in taking care of that and getting everything back up to its pre-disaster conditions. If we do have a situation, and as Heath described, if it goes beyond our resources, goes to the county, goes to the state, and then it turns over to a federal type of an event. And there's certain things that we can do if we do them correctly, and that's one of the responsibilities that Heath has been tasked with, is that we have to document everything. And as we do that, those things that we participate in as a city can go towards an in-kind match for the things that are required for FEMA.
Councilmember Seastrand has a comment.
Thank you. So we've been fortunate to not experience any major catastrophes in my lifetime or disasters. So I'm grateful for that. But it creates an element of a little bit of an awareness of what some of the issues would be. And my recollection would be that there are disaster-related consequences that affect the city directly, buildings, roads, infrastructure. Then there could be some disaster-related activities or issues that relate to individual property owners or individual families. Are these pre-mitigation activities geared towards which resources or which potential organizations that would then have to be dealing with the mitigation recovery or with the disaster recovery?
So this grant in particular is geared more towards infrastructure, with getting the city back up and running with the roads, hospitals, that kind of thing, versus individual homeowners.
So have you already identified that particular mitigation plan or whatever?
So in the actual plan itself, the Orem statement of vulnerabilities, this was the Orem emergency management. We'd predicted that winter weather storm, earthquake, so it doesn't have to be a huge disaster. Just our everyday winter storms that we get can be enough that we can go through and work on those pre-disasters.
Trees being downed or whatever.
So yeah, when you think natural disaster, it doesn't have to be something as big as one of these hurricanes that have come in recently. It can be, the storms that we get or the fires that we have going here in the city. So
is outlined. They identified natural hazards of flooding, wildland fires, landslides, earthquakes, droughts, severe weather, and infestation. So there's a lot of things that can, on the surface, turn into be a significant event that could be very burdensome to a community at large. If you have a wildland fire, say, for instance, on the East Bench, that opens up a whole different the watershed and landslide and everything that is associated with that. So these are the items that they have identified as potential issues.
That's interesting. We had the Japanese beetle infestation back in the late 2000s. That was pretty significant. So hadn't thought of that. Remember that one.
The process that FEMA goes through for accepting these grants, it's on a competitive basis on a state level. So the amount of money for specific flood mitigation efforts this year is $90 million nationwide. Utah has a portion of that. I'm not sure what the sum is, but the grants are submitted all over the nation, and then it's a competitive basis. It usually has to do with a cost-benefit analysis. So smaller owners and neighborhoods will be less likely to get grants over community-wide programs, such as retrofitting a building such as this for earthquakes potentially, or for flooding from a dam failure.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from anybody on the council? Sure.
I move that the city adopt the Mountainland Pre-Disaster Hazardous Mitigation Plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll start. Did you say aye?
Aye.
Okay. Then we'll go to.
Anxious.
She is. Councilmember Sumner.
Aye.
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 Okay, the resolution passes. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nice work. Thank you.
Are there any communication items, Jamie? Okay. If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Thanks, Debbie. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
You don't want power?
Don't forget your water bottle.